Seeing and Thinking More Clearly Through the Eyes of the New Man, with Dan and Lee Rodden.
Welcome to Dan and Lee and the Sunday class.
Well, here we go again with our second Sunday class. And today we're talking about how Jesus multiplied things. Yes. What verses are we reading, Miss Lee?
You know what? It's still in the verses of Matthew 14, 13b through 23, Mark 6, 30 through 46, and Luke 9, 10 through 17, and also John 6, 1 through 15.
Okay, now read loud and put it close to your mouth.
All right, here we go. Now the apostles, on returning, gathered together with Jesus and reported to him all the things they had done and
now,
taught.
Where were they returning from? I know.
All right, you tell me then. Don't make me look.
You don't have to look. Remember, he sent them out 2 by 2.
Oh, that's right.
And they were to go, and those that received them, they were to stay in their homes. They weren't supposed to take money bags, and they were also, those that didn't receive them, they weren't supposed to worry about it, dust their feet, and leave them a curse.
Yeah, okay.
So, we
had the John the Baptist killed in between, so I forgot where the...
Yeah, and John the Baptist had been killed. But here now we have all these people besides the 12, probably people they've met. These are probably a lot of the people that they had witnessed to and evangelized and brought them together in a group concept, kind of like we hope to do in the Eternal Treasure Chest as we develop, where we're using the internet to meet people and to go out. But then what we will do is we will probably in Orlando, because there's the Holy Land Experience and Disney and Universal Studio and zoos and everything to do, and we can bring them together and have a wonderful week of study. So that's what has happened. This is a real life situation where they've gone out, some cities have accepted, some have rejected, and now they're bringing them together.
And so they've just kind of followed these men that have taught them about Jesus, and now they're all coming together again.
Yeah.
All coming together. Okay, so they're gathering together with Jesus, and they reported to him all the things they had done and taught. Then said he to them, "Come away by yourselves to a wilderness place and rest for a little while." And he realized they were tired, I guess. And
they had a lot. It wasn't
and doing all this stuff and talking to people.
They had been on quite a long mission. It could have been a month long or even longer. We don't know exactly. They had worked really hard, and they had all this crowd that they were taking care of that follow them around, and so there was a reason to go rest.
So this is interesting what it says next. It says, "For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure time even to eat." So they were ministering to people and helping them and doing all, and they didn't even have time to eat a meal.
Yeah, they were just really busy.
And he took them and withdrew privately in the boat to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, or Sea of Tiberias, to a wilderness spot belonging to a city called Bethsaida. We had to take them like on a little retreat.
Trying to get them away from the people that were following them too. They were.
Well, he probably wanted to know. I mean, I know he knew, but he probably wanted to know what they were doing, and kind of reporting what they said. But they didn't even have time to get together to do that.
Well, this is interesting because Jesus is really. You see this in the development of this. Ministry is not a 9-to-5 job. It's like you report at 8 o'clock in the morning, you go home at 5 o'clock in the afternoon for 5 days a week. Literally, you go on these campaigns and they're just overwhelming. It's almost like a political campaign during the election. You just go, 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 and then it changes. But ministry is very much like that, as we've been in ministry, how long now? For 40 years?
Over 40
45
years,
almost.
Years, I guess.
And sometimes it's real busy and crazy, and you get totally exhausted. And, like one time I even collapsed. I was so tired. But, the Lord sustained me. Then I had to retreat and rest. And
I think this is one of the reasons why for a while we had several young people, young adults. They weren't teenagers. They were, beyond high school, living with us, so that you could teach them about being a Christian, living a Christian life, just in the everyday things that you do. So they
Right.
participated in cleaning the house and cooking meals and ministering to each other, and then others that came into our house for Bible study and something, and it really, it really taught them.
And you know what's so encouraging? We're still friends with some of those people on Facebook, and
Yeah.
some of them have lots of kids, and they even have grandkids, and man, we're old.
That makes us feel really old, doesn't it?
It's exciting to
When they
see
have
the multiplication go on. But Jesus is about to show how multiplication should take place. So let's come back.
Okay, so they're in this, going to this little wilderness spot. But the crowds learned of it and saw them leaving, and many recognized him. And together on foot they hurried in that direction from all the towns. They followed him because of seeing the miraculous signs which he wrought on those who were sick. They even arrived there before them, and came together toward him. So when Jesus came ashore, he beheld a great throng. But he was moved with compassion toward them, as they were like sheep that had no shepherd. And he welcomed them, and began to teach them many things. And he talked to them about the kingdom of God, and healed those who had need of healing.
Now, here is a very interesting thing, because we were just talking about how sometimes you need to retreat, and then you go retreat, and those that are wanting to learn come around and bug you.
Well, they got there before he got
They even were anticipating and beat him to the destination of retreat. And Jesus took compassion on them. He didn't go, oh man, and he wasn't angry or bitter, or I need to rest. This is the model.
Like sheep with no shepherd.
Yeah, and this is the model of ministry, though. You have to have that heart of willingness to do those things even when you're tired. I remember Francis Schaeffer, a story I heard about him when we were up there in Rochester studying with him. One of the people came up and said how they had a question, and they came over to his house, and he welcomed them in, and he was so friendly and so accepting, and did all this stuff, just to minister to them. And they left, and they thought, wow, that was just wonderful. And it was a couple days later they learned that he had just got home from being diagnosed with cancer that was going to kill him. And they didn't even know. Yeah. He didn't complain. He just ministered to them. And that was a model to me. That helped me see how that, we have to die to ourselves in ministry and really in the Christian life.
Well, I've seen here where we live now how some people just stop by. I mean, a lot of them are like single men that have no families, so they have no concept of schedules, or they just kind of do things when they do things. And I know there's been a number of times when somebody has stopped by wanting to talk to you, and it was just about time to have supper. And so what we do is you come out and sit and talk to them for a couple hours, and supper sits and waits, and then it gets warmed up when they've had whatever questions they need answered. So it's still true today too, even though what we do is being quote unquote retired.
And I
be ready to.
I think that has to do with our Christian infopreneur concept too, where on Facebook sometimes people will text us or ask us questions, and I think it's very important that we get back to them and minister them as quickly and as judiciously as possible, even though we may be tired. And occasionally I'll have that where I'm real tired, and I'll have somebody get to me, and I find my new computer really helps a lot, because I can just dictate an answer as opposed to trying to type it out and do the spelling checking and all that. So Jesus gave the model.
Be ready in season and out of season.
That's right.
No matter what time it is. All right, now when the day was far spent, Jesus went up on the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. And the Passover, the Jewish feast, was at hand. So when Jesus raised his eyes and saw a great multitude approaching him, he said to Philip, "Where will we buy loaves of bread so that these people may eat?" But this he said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of loaves would not be enough for them each to receive just a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, Here is a young lad who has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish, but what are these among so many? Now, we looked up before how much 200 denarii worth is, just because I was curious. And today's value would be about $4,000.
That wouldn't even be enough to
And that
start.
was just like an appetizer
Yeah.
for everyone.
We wouldn't even get them going with that much, and we don't, have that much.
So you just think.
And that's a good example of how we've learned in ministry. We look at our resources and we don't seem to have enough. A good example is we needed to do these podcasts. We needed a really different computer because ours were not equipped to do it with. And we needed some microphones and we needed some other things, which we're still getting. And that's where donations from people really do help us. But we had a person who just donated some food to us, and it really was a blessing.
Yeah, they gave us a food gift.
Yeah, but what that meant, it freed up our resources of the money, so I could go out and buy the computer. So, there's a lot of creativity into these resources to do ministry, and to sit there and covet other people's ministry is the wrong thing to do. You mix your creativity with God's resources and your labor, and God supplies your needs.
I think just another example of that is unexpected places. Both of us had our computers go out several months ago. They got burned, fried.
Well, they got fried because we had a spike that came through the house. Yeah.
And so a wonderful couple here in town donated one to you to use.
I didn't even know them.
No, we went in actually to get our computer fixed.
They were a computer store, actually, and they asked what our budget was, and I didn't know what to tell them. And Lee held up a big 0. We have no budget. And I explained to him, I said, I came in to see how much it would cost because I could start saving, and maybe in the next 5 months, because that's all I could figure out to do. Because the normal way to get money is to save and to work and that. But see, the Lord does amazing things with amazing grace. And this woman just looked at me and says, well, I'm going to bless you. And I go, what? I just didn't dawn on me. So what's that mean? She said, I'm going to give you a computer. And I was like shocked. And I was shocked because what happened, it allowed me to get started again and has led to us doing the podcast and all the things we're doing.
And so then beyond that, I still didn't have a computer.
Louise was still
out.
out.
I tried to work a little. I have a little tablet, and if anyone has a small tablet, you can do some things on it, but it's hard and takes a lot of time. And so we prayed every time we prayed together. Lee needs a computer, and really out of nowhere, a friend says, I have a friend who's going to give you the money to get a new computer. And so I was able to get a little computer that I can now work on. And that was like way out in left field where we didn't expect
So
it.
we had made a total commitment to do the rest of our lives internet ministry through the Eternal Treasure Chest and through teaching people to be infopreneurs and using Facebook and doing all these things. And then suddenly everything went wrong. We lost our computers, we didn't have any money, we had our budget cut by about a lot, about 20% budget cut. We were going, how are we going to get there? And when we look back, God gave us this one in the way that the repair store gave us one. God gave us one because a friend of ours just donated one. And another one donated some food, and we mixed our creativity with the food, and we were able to get this computer and the microphones.
And
so
yet another person donated to let us get the microphone and the other equipment.
That's right. And then another person just out, I was having breakfast with another person, and they donated just enough, and we were able to get the microphone and the hard drive that we're going to need to replace all this. So we just have to focus and continue. And this isn't just this time. As faith missionaries, we've seen this from the beginning. So Jesus did miracles, and he still is in the hearts of people and with lots of people.
Okay, so we just have seen that over and over in our lives, the last 45 years or so, plus where God just supplies things where we don't have any idea where they're going to come from.
So we pray, and we have our prayer list, and it takes us usually about 20, 30 minutes to an hour to go through that prayer list because we're giving, and we have it written on our computers, and we go through it, and we give thanks. Sometime we'll go through some of those things with you. We don't want it, some of them are private, but we then give thanks, and we have little dots. We put the blessings, and it really lets us see how much the Lord does.
I know something I've been seeing on Facebook that people are passing around is an idea, which is kind of what we do on our computer. We make a list, but it's you have an empty jar you put out the 1st of January. And every time you have a blessing, you put a little note in there.
Oh, wow, I hadn't seen that, yeah.
And then at the end of the year, you go through that, and it's, it's such a, for a family especially, that would be great, because, get your kids involved in doing this too.
Yeah.
Put a little note in there, I won a baseball game, I got something special for eating for lunch. Put the things that you're thankful for that are blessings, and you'll be amazed when you look at the end of the year to see how much the Lord has done for you.
And if you would focus on just one of those a day, you would have a lot, but then you'll get in the habit.
Yes.
And you'll probably put 10, 12, 13
Yeah.
sticky note things in there, and that's a really good idea. We need to make that one of our goals for next year. I like that idea.
I'll find a jar.
We'll just have a little jar and we'll stick those in.
There we
Okay.
go.
Because it's nothing more encouraging when you get discouraged. You go back and count your blessings, and we've always said that: count your blessings, count them.
One by one.
My kids would always get so mad at Thanksgiving. I say, "Okay, what are the blessings?" And they are.
Amazingly, though, they always came up with quite a few things that
Yeah.
people had been thankful for.
But I wish we'd have done that with raising our children, because that would have been so.
It's
You
a
had
visible
you
sign.
forget, you literally forget these things.
And
Yeah.
even if you don't, if you have a discouraging day and you don't, you don't think anything good is happening, you have that jar sitting out somewhere where you can see it. Look at that jar, how it fills up, and you'll go, oh yeah, the Lord has blessed me all these many times.
So one of the weapons of our warfare in depression, when we get discouraged, which is one form of depression, it's not clinical depression, but it can lead to that, is count your blessings. Count them one by one. And a technique or a tactic to be able to do that is the jar.
Yeah.
And we use our player, and we do it every week, and we have our prayer list. So yeah, good.
All right, now we're going on a little bit, and this is bring them here to me. Then came the 12, and they said to him, the place here is a wilderness, and the hour already late, and the multitude away, send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages and countryside round about and lodge, and buy themselves food, for they have nothing to eat. But he answered and said to them,
Now who said that we should go and do this?
This was, it was his disciples. It's the 12
Okay,
disciples said
so
that.
their tactic was to, send them all away, let them all take care of themselves.
Right.
And that's good. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? We should be self-sustaining. But Jesus likes to bless us so we don't spend our time and we've seen that. We're faith missionaries, and many people don't understand that. Because and one of my best friends, he's always saying, well, why don't you just go get a job? I said, because then I'm not able to work so much on my ministry. I'm not able to meet with people. I'm not able to write. I'm not able to research. I'm not able to study. And again, it's got to be a calling. It's unique. It isn't the norm in our life. We're not the norm, but we've seen the Lord all of our lives have blessed us in that calling. And that's what everybody can do. We should look first to the blessing, and then we go to the norm. That's what we do.
And I think, when you think about that, sometimes, it doesn't mean everybody has to do what we do.
No.
Your ministry
We're not
may
the
be
norm.
to work on computers.
We're not the norm.
Your ministry may be working in a grocery store.
Well,
and bagging groceries. I mean, everybody has a different, you as Francis Schaeffer said, you influence your sphere of influence.
And one of the things Lee and I have done is in being retired is our Social Security doesn't quite pay enough for us to live on. It's really, really not enough. So I've a couple times thought, well, we'll get a little job here, a little job there. And every time I go do this, or I'll create a little business, it isn't fruitful. And Lee and I wonder, well, this is odd. Why can't we be fruitful here? And every time we move forward in faith ministry, we're fruitful. So the Lord has persuaded us, even in our retirement, we need to continue to trust Him to supply our needs from our brethren, the way we did in our ministry when we were full-time.
Yeah.
And now we're not only full-time, we're doing it all the time.
Everywhere and everything we do.
So anyway, Jesus gives us the model, and now He's going to tell them, don't do it the normal way this time. Do it this way.
Okay, so Jesus answered and said to them, they need not go away. You give them something to eat. And they said to him, I can see the shock on their face. I can just see their faces. Shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of loaves and give them to eat? But he said to them, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. And on finding out, they said to him, we have here just 5 loaves and 2 fish, unless indeed we go and buy food for all this throng. But he said to them, bring them here to me. Then said Jesus...
See, he had a different way, not the natural, normal way, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's how most of us, and most of the time, we supply our needs. And we've lived that way some, but, we found, in our case, the Lord has called us, and we clearly see that. But go ahead.
Okay, then said Jesus to the disciples, have the men recline for eating, in companies of 50. Now there was abundant grass in the place, and they did so, having them all recline on the green grass. And they reclined in rows by hundreds and by 50s. Well, that number there, just by hundreds and by 50s, there's a lot of people there.
There's more than 2,000 or 4,000 to
men. That's just the men.
Yeah,
That's
it's not the children, it's not the women. So there's 20 or so thousand people to feed.
Then took he the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up toward heaven, he blessed them. And having given thanks, he broke the loaves and distributed to the disciples to set before the throng. And likewise of the 2 small fish divided he among them all, as much as they wished. And all of them ate and were satisfied. And when all were filled, he said to the disciples, gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost. So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves and the fish.
So he was
which were
even
left by those who had eaten.
concerned.
And those who had eaten were about 5,000 men.
He was even concerned about cleaning up after himself.
Okay, listen to this. 5,000 men, besides women and children.
Yeah, I know. We said that. Yeah.
So there were 5,000 men, another probably, say 5,000 women, and who knows how many children. That's a lot of people to feed.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. But the key thing, there's the natural normal, and most people give and live that way, and they give to those who are faith livers, and we often will think, well, we just need to go back to get a job. And we've realized the Lord supplies our needs. He's promised us He would. He's shown us He would. Someday we're going to write a book about all the amazing things that the Lord has done in the 45 years of ministry. But now here, as we tried to find ways to have that just a little extra money over our Social Security, we realized we needed to pursue ministry. And that's what we're able to do here with this. So is that the end today?
I've got one more little paragraph before we start a new section next week. So let me read this.
Okay.
And it's
we got like 5 minutes here.
All right. Then those men, having seen the miraculous sign which Jesus wrought, kept saying, this surely is the prophet who is coming into the world. Jesus, therefore, perceiving that they were ready to come and seize him to make him king, immediately constrained his disciples to board the boat to precede him to the other side, to Bethsaida, while he should send the multitude away. And when he had taken leave of the crowds, he withdrew again up the mountain by himself alone to pray.
Well, here's what's interesting. They were wanting to come and take him and make him king, and he knew it wasn't time yet.
It was not time to be king.
And that's why wisdom is to know what time is. And one of the things you see about Jesus' life here is that he had his purpose, His purpose was to disciple these small group of people and to die for the sins of the whole world. And that way, by people believing, they could have their sins forgiven. So if he didn't do those two things, and then when he died, he was going to go be with the Father, so he had to leave behind someone to continue to teach. And that is an amazing tactical strategy.
And that is teaching other men to be faithful, to carry on.
Well, we'll see you next week.
Seeing and Thinking More Clearly Through the Eyes of the New Man with Dan and Lee Rodden.